But first, we're going to begin with a major breakthrough in the Middle East. Some of the hostages held by Hamas will soon be freed under a monumental deal with the Israeli government. So here's what we know under this deal. Hamas will release 50 women and children who were taken on October 7th. In exchange, Israel will release 150 Palestinian women and children held in various jails. The agreement also guarantees a 4-day pause in fighting and paves the way for more aid to enter Gaza. A U.S. official says 3 Americans are expected to be among the hostages released, including Abigail Moore-Edan, who turns 4 on Friday. Our Ian Lee has more.
Overnight, the Qatari government announced that Israel and Hamas agreed to a deal for a 4-day ceasefire, plus the release of 50 civilian women and children hostages held in Gaza in exchange for some Palestinian women and children currently detained in Israeli prisons. The beginning of the pause in fighting will be announced within the next few hours.
We've been working on this intensively for weeks.
In a statement, President Biden said the deal should bring home additional American hostages and that he will not stop until all of them are released. 63-year-old Gilad Korngold has 7 relatives that are believed to be among the roughly 240 hostages Hamas took on October 7th, including his son, daughter-in-law, and young grandchildren.
I want everybody back.
The deal will also allow larger truck convoys carrying much-needed humanitarian aid, including fuel, to flow to civilians in Gaza. Before his government agreed to the deal, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the pause does not mean an end to the war and that his country will continue to fight until absolute victory. The Israeli government says the temporary pause in fighting would be extended an extra day for every additional 10 hostages Hamas releases. Anne-Marie?
So, Ian, we know a little bit about the hostages, women and children. Some of them will be Americans. But what about the Palestinians who are going to be released? What do we know about them?
Well, Israel released the name of 300 Palestinian prisoners for the possible release, and none of them have been convicted of murder. That was important for the Israelis. Now, we know that once this deal goes through, once it's agreed, 150 of those Palestinians will be released. We don't know where they're going to go, if they're going to go to the West Bank, Gaza, or potentially another country. But Israel holds more than 8,000 Palestinian prisoners, many of them under administrative detention, which is basically being held without charge, and they can be held for an extended period of time. Many of the people that we're hearing in this deal are going to be women and children released by the Israelis. But, you know, with Israel releasing 300 names, it leads that there could be more people, more exchanges in the future. Anne-Marie?
All right, Ian. Ian Lee, thank you so much. So we will have continuing coverage from the Middle East later on this hour. We're going to be joined by Lilia Luciano. She's in Israel, and she's going to talk more about this deal. You can stream that around 7:33 Eastern. So following the Israeli government's approval of the hostage deal with Hamas, Dan O'Shea joined my colleague Errol Barnett on CBS News Primetime. The retired Navy SEAL commander and former coordinator of the State Department's hostage working group weighed in on the latest developments.
I mean, the U.S. just traded $6 billion for the recovery of 5 Iranian-American hostages and exchanged 6 Iranians not 2 months ago. In fact, that was announced publicly on September 11th, this past September, ironically enough. So, of course, hostage terrorism works. And this administration has made it clear that they do negotiate for terrorists. And that notion that was a thing that kept America and our closest allies like the UK and Australia and Canada and New Zealand safe was that the word on the street was, at least when I was in Iraq, this is 15 years ago, the U.S. did not negotiate, did not make concessions to terrorists. Now we do that, and we're seeing the effect. So, yes, this deal is going to get some of these hostages back, but it will put a target on other individuals traveling abroad because hostage terrorism works.
So several American troops have been wounded in an attack on the al-Assad airbase in Iraq. Officials say a heavily armed U.S. attack plane quickly retaliated, killing several Iran-backed militants. The Pentagon says this was the first time in recent weeks that U.S. troops were targeted with a close-range ballistic missile. Over the past month, dozens of U.S. troops have been wounded in 66 attacks on bases in Iraq and Syria.